Call the December 17th, 2020 North Augusta Planning Commission study session to order. And our first item is an update on the North Augusta Development Code rewrite. And I'm going to turn that over to anything you have to share about that.
All right. So hopefully y'all all can see the screen here. Make sure that I'm advancing. I have just a few slides to share with you all about this today. Just wanted to point out kind of where we are in the entire process of the plan. We're still in pretty early days here. Looking at the code survey, best practice analysis, code audit, and recommendations. I think honestly, when it comes down to it, this is going to be the most important part of the project. I emailed out today links to internal and external surveys. So if you guys were all, Planning Commission was included in the internal survey since you work internal to the process. And I believe I copied you all on the external survey as well. If you could forward that out to anyone you think is interested, if you're on any email groups, it will hit our Facebook feed first thing tomorrow morning. It's on our website. So it'll be real easy to kind of forward out to anybody on your Facebook or anything like that.
Libby, could I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How in depth is that survey? I just didn't know how long we needed to plan for. Is it?
It should take you 5 minutes or so.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of it's just kind of ranking what you think about stuff and putting some preferences in order. Just giving a little bit of feedback on how that works, how the code currently works.
Thank you.
So just to kind of give an overview of what they look for a code rewrite, they're going to look carefully at our formatting, processes, and substance. They did point out that we have several strengths to our code currently, is that it addresses a wide variety of items. It establishes some pretty high standards for North Augusta. It attempts to guide development and building form, which is crucial, and that it's unified, that most of the rules are consolidated essentially in one place. So those are some strengths that they have pointed out in their initial review. Excuse me, just for 1 second. There we go. So just a few summary points on what they've noticed about the code so far that they would like to address is some of the repetitiveness, some of the order of the organization, style, how interactive it is, meaning, pictures and being able to follow what the code is telling you. And sometimes there's some extraneous material that they would like to eliminate. They would also like to clarify the processes with the, current staff capacity, flexibility, and clarifying processes. And some of the regulatory substance, some of the development types that we don't use, they're going to look closely at that. The overlay system, obviously, we've heard a lot about that. Infill and redevelopment challenges, adding some precision, which is being more specific about what it is that we're looking for in some cases, and to look at how we use our plan developments. And some of what they heard, these are some of the comments that they heard. Obviously, that was repetitive, that the organization was a little scattered. The style of presentation was a little bit difficult to follow. Interactivity. This could also include, things like hyperlinks on our online versions as well, and just extraneous material that really doesn't belong in the development code. Oops. Additionally, we're going to talk a little. They're looking more closely at our process and administration. Talking about what the administrative demand is, which they say, and I would have to agree from my point of view, that the administrative capacity is far greater than the resources available. The flexibility, there's some desire for some flexibility, and just clarifying and making the process more efficient. Interestingly, we've seen some support for the actual regulatory content. And I think y'all have heard me say this before, is that some of the stuff that's in the code is actually good. It's just how we get about to it that gets a little shifty. And definitely they've heard about, overlay systems, some of our use types that we don't use, some of our infill and redevelopment challenges, maybe dialing in some of our districts a little bit so that we can better reflect what it is we're trying to achieve. Plan developments. I mean, probably at least a third of the property within the city of North Augusta is PD zoning, and that's probably a little bit much. And also talking about land development methods and some of our nonconformities and how we handle that sort of stuff. So I'll take any questions if you have any questions from there. Anybody have any questions?
I see there's a lot of comments in the on the left side. Are you getting a lot of interest, Libby? I guess the best way to say it, as far as response and anything from anybody? Are they?
I don't have numbers for the survey yet. This is just from the focus groups that were held a couple weeks ago, and we interacted with maybe 60 people. I mean, it was fairly well attended, and we really tried to reach out to as many people as we possibly could.
If you had 60 people, you did pretty well, I would think.
Yeah. And of course we've, offered a couple of makeup meetings, online, and, we've tried our best to get people involved, and there'll be more public involvement further on. Hopefully we'll be a little past COVID when all of that happens as well. But,
yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. We'll try our best. But next steps from here are going to be, getting the results from these surveys. We're going to start really digging into some of the meat of the code itself. We'll be taking it back to the steering committee and start bouncing some ideas off of them and assigning more particular roles to the people on the steering committee.
And you did say the email you sent us, I did not look at it yet. There's an additional link that we can forward to folks who are not on planning commission.
Right. So the link that I sent to the planning commission specifically, it'll say that this is an internal link and please do not share it with the public.
Okay.
Just because we want to keep those responses separate. The surveys are just a hair different. And then there's a second survey link that I sent out that is forwardable to the public and will be the same as the one that's shown on our website, and will go out on Facebook first thing in the morning.
Okay. All right. If there's not anything else for number 2, you ready to move on to the electronic reader boards?
Sure, if we're ready for that. Just to give some background, and I cover this some in the policy brief that I sent out with the agenda. The city council sent back, the text amendment dealing with electronic signage in residential districts to examine potential other methods of regulation for those situations. What I've provided here is, kind of the background, explain, what an electronic sign is, all of that sort of stuff. And then gone through several alternate regulations that could potentially be used in that situation. As I stated on my notes, these are meant to be more of a menu, so you can add what you want, take away what you want. If there are portions that you don't think are feasible at all. They're not mandatory to be used by any means. These are just suggestions, just the ways some other jurisdictions have used these restrictions. Generally, these break down into about 5 different regulation methods, and that's road classification, spacing, shutoff timing, lot standards, and special processes. If you have any particular questions about any of the types, I'd be happy to entertain those. If you just want to talk about how you feel about it, or if you're curious about the administrative aspects of how we would use this, please let me know.
All right. I know I've got a couple of questions, but I won't jump in first. If anyone else would like to ask Libby anything before I ask my questions.
So then if you could share the administrative perspective on using some of these different.
Sure. So basically this would come down to, depending on how it's written, is how we enforce it. We can specifically tie this to reader boards in residential districts or reader boards across the spectrum. That's all that's all up to, planning commission and how they want to recommend it to city council. I think I've noted in a couple of them that I had some administrative concerns just about, making sure that the text that we forward is actually enforceable. We can always request for some regulations to be put into place, but it's very important that if we're going to do it, we really should do it right. Does that kind of address what you're asking?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Libby, so we're going to be, city council wants us to rewrite this text. And my question is, we could, whatever we decide how we want to write this text, theoretically could not, both Victory and Be Ye Holy may not fit, right? We're not really trying to do something for each church. We're kind of using them as a reference, but we could write a text amendment change that they would not fit, right?
That is certainly possible. So when it comes to a text amendment, we're looking at the larger picture. You really shouldn't do a text amendment for one specific thing.
Right.
You should be looking at the larger picture of, in this situation, how do we want to handle the regulation of a certain type of use or sign or whatever.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Could you maybe share, or if you know, what council's concerns or why they sent it back? Was there anything else that we needed to?
The instruction was to look at other ways to regulate electronic signage in residential districts. The mayor specifically mentioned trying to use road classification.
Okay.
But as part of that, I thought it would be helpful for you all to know that there were actually more ways to do this other than just only road classification.
Okay.
Did council feel like, I'm trying to think back when we talked about Be Ye Holy, are we thinking when the future of North Augusta that we're going to see more situations like this with people wanting this, non-residential use in a resident, that we just feel like this is going to start coming up more and more? Or do you think these are just too isolated, or did council feel like, hey, this is really an issue that we need to address?
I'm not sure I can completely answer that question. If we move forward as a city with additional kind of mixed use development, infill, maybe having more commercial mixed in with our residential districts, it may very well be that we do end up with more situations similar to this.
Okay.
I think looking at it from just a church point of view, churches are allowed in every zoning district that we have. So they're kind of special in that way. That's not a use that has traditionally been pulled out and not allowed in all zoning districts.
Okay.
I don't know if that kind of answers your question.
You answered my question. That's what I was looking for. Okay. And you did say that you could have multiple. You've got 5 items here, but we could add 2. We could use 3 of those on there, or 2 of them, right? We don't have to. It's not like we're picking just one of them.
That's correct. You can mix and match. You can do none of them. I mean, that's all up to the commission.
I've got one specific question. On page 5, I'm not page 5. On page 3, I guess the second paragraph, it starts with additionally at the top, additionally due to the prohibition based on zoning districts per state law, the Board of Zoning Appeals would be unable to provide relief in the form of a variance for allowing these signs in residential zone properties.
Yes.
Then because I liked number 5 on page 5, special processes, I think that gave some flexibility, but I didn't understand, and I'm sure I'm reading it wrong. Under 5, the second sentence, this could be accommodated through the Board of Zoning Appeals using special exceptions or variances. So Board of Zoning Appeals can be used in some situations like this, but not. I'm kind of confused.
Yeah, as it's currently written, since electronic reader boards are prohibited in specific zoning districts, the Board of Zoning Appeals cannot hear or cannot allow a variance to something that's prohibited by zoning.
Okay.
But if we change the regulation to allow the use per, with a hearing for a special exception or for a variance or something like that, they could hear it then, if they were given that right within the text.
And we have that ability to do that. Okay.
Yeah, that would be that could be part of the text change. You would just say, it would be similar to how we do bed and breakfasts. You could say, an electronic reader board could be allowed in a residential district if the Board of Zoning Appeals grants it per, whatever stipulations.
Okay. I mean, I do see some merit in the road classification. I could see how that would make sense. I thought the spacing also could make sense. So I could see, I'm just talking out loud, I could see how, we could combine parts of those 2 into one. I don't know about the shut off the timing, if that, I don't know about that one, but I thought 1 and 2 to me seemed those would be number 1 and 2 are 2 that I thought would make sense that we could somehow combine.
Libby,
Mm-hmm.
when I looked at it and I was reading this, I thought, well, I wonder what they're doing other places. And then on page 4, I came to it, and they were saying they banned them within 100 feet, 150 feet to 300 feet in a residential structure, distance or structures. And that pretty much to me is one of the best things we have. Because that would eliminate, I know a church can do what they want to do, but if you are within 150 feet of someone's home and you have a reader board out, that's pretty tough to have to deal with all day.
And I would like to mention that all of these are based on various municipalities or counties. This isn't stuff I just made up on my own. So,
Yeah, well, it has that
You
clear.
flip a coin.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, it clearly says it's several municipalities. Which municipalities were those? Do you know? Do you remember?
Not off the top of my head. I gave references to the publications that I used, and they showed cities all across the United States.
Okay. So if we are going to allow it in a residential area, usually a residential area, the houses are within 150 feet or 200 feet from each other. I mean, most front lots are not going to be much more than that. Or they're not even coming close to that. I mean, I know the lots we do, if they're 100 feet wide, we're thrilled to death to have that. So I'm just saying that pretty much eliminates most of these being in a neighborhood. Right?
Oh, it would depend on the situation. But, that's for the commission to discuss.
Right.
Yeah,
Our community.
I know we're not talking about victory. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I know we're not talking about each of these specifically, but, Victory, I think most people were probably surprised that it was in a residential district. We don't think of that because your entrance is Martintown Road and it's not like there's houses right around there. Versus when you talk about the space in here, you really would be impacting people in their residential houses. So I don't know. Did you cancel any of these items, or they just said, "Hey, bring it back to us," and then you put this together? Did they see any of all these different choices, Libby?
They haven't seen these. No,
Okay.
The only one that the mayor mentioned was the road classification. But like I said, I felt like you guys
That's
needed
good.
more information to make an informed decision.
Lynn, what you think, man? Bob, y'all speak up. This is Libby needs some help here.
Libby, did you look at these distances for the two examples? I mean, would 150 feet rule let them both in, or would it cut one of them out?
I did not. I did not want to get bogged down in
I understand.
a specific example.
Okay. What about the idea that was in here somewhere of within some distance of a commercial district? That probably would be like on Martintown Road, because you got a real estate agent on the corner up there. I think the commercial zoning stops at Bunning.
There's some on the other side, and then the Maybaum office is actually a PD.
Yeah, so we had a big fight over that when it came, because nobody wanted to cross Bunning. I was trying to decide what's best limitations to put on it. One other one I'm going to ask about. It seems to me there was one of the things that the church Holy Church was asking for was to eliminate the item about can't occupy more than 50% of the sign area. I'm assuming that means that the one they've already bought is probably the whole board. But you didn't make any comments on changing that.
No, that to me was a simpler decision to make. So that's something we can talk about when we actually get to the point of looking at the text of the text amendment.
Yeah.
So if the commission wants to remove that, they can remove that. And if not, there's no need to worry about that with this particular set of circumstances.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Libby, when you were looking at the different municipalities and the references that you have here, was it common to see them using more than one classification? because you talked about the spacing, but I was just curious, are other municipalities using more than just one of these, or are they combining them? Is this normal?
From what I can tell, all of them seem to do it a little bit differently, but there all does seem to be some sort of mix.
Okay, there's a mix. Okay, so we need to probably be moving in that direction.
A number of them just prohibited them. So, and we're talking just specifically in residential districts.
Yeah, so the bottom line is, yeah, that was good. You made my next point. So council's bringing it back to us to look at, but the reality is we don't have to change it.
You could recommend no change. That's absolutely true.
Okay, but so I guess my question is, the point you made about you think going forward with the mixed use, do you see? I guess my question is this something that is critical for us to move on now, or is this something that we could have more time, that especially in the future with the mixed use of things you're talking about with the regular code, or how important is it for us to really move on this now?
I would say for the applicants, it's probably very important. But functionally, we get maybe one electronic reader board, maybe two a year.
This is the first I remember, yeah.
Well, I think if we do open it up and allow this, we'll get a lot more. Because I think most people think they can't have one.
And I know that as a small business person, even when we were building Exit 5, we were shocked when we could, but given the location. And so it's just because everyone assumes that you can't. And I do think that we really have to be thoughtful about in mixed use. If mixed use will cease to be really mixed use and be more heavily commercial and not truly mixed use, because we've got reader boards.
Exactly. I agree with that.
Say that again, Christine. I'm sorry, I cut off on me.
So that mixed use becomes more commercial than mixed use because you got reader boards. Because I'm not going to build a house next. So a house that is used as a real estate office, I'm fine with. But the moment it has a reader board in front of it, I'm maybe not as fine.
Yeah.
Question, tonight's just discussion because it's not on the agenda and we can't do anything in the study session legally. So I guess you could add it to your agenda if you wanted to do something tonight. But it was my impression that this was a discussion and we think about it till the next meeting, since it's not on the agenda.
So that was my intention, is for us to just kind of be able to talk about it. And
Good.
if the planning commission agreed to a certain avenue, we could look at specific text amendments based on that information. But I didn't want to hurry the decision either. This is a complicated subject, and there are so many avenues to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Libby, why you blocked me out? I was trying to talk. You didn't block me.
I'm sorry.
I've been yelling, hey.
Well, I just saw you show up, if that helps.
No, I was on my phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just get here when you can, Tim.
I've been here for the last 10 minutes. I just couldn't talk. On the reader boards, did you have any specific examples of any neighborhood that were converting, that were burgeoning into being more mixed use, that we can kind of apply what we would think would be appropriate or not appropriate, other than the church reader board? Because most of our neighborhoods are kind of like in the subdivision areas, other than like those corridors that we got the we approved the convenience store to enlarge. Is there any other examples that might come before us that you can think of?
A lot of those. So this is where we kind of get into the tickly part of all of this, is as properties convert from residential to commercial, generally they will come in here and they will get a rezoning. So we will be aware of that. Most of the rezonings, if I'm recalling correctly, are either slight expansion like Francis Street or, converting to a more dense residential district. So it's not necessarily a complete flip in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sort of, kind of.
Well, and that's particularly what I'm talking about.
If we approach it from what we think would be inappropriate and try to design the text amendment to guard more so than allow. So, and like a lot of municipalities where they still have residentials, no, and we've got burgeoning residential areas becoming more mixed use and zoning changes that we say that the signs could be no more than this. And so if we looked at it from that standpoint is, I think we can accomplish our goals. That makes sense? Sort of, kind of.
Give an example.
I give an example.
I mean, how would you do it using these, I mean, these cut classifications she's talking about? Because I'm torn. I mean, I see it both ways. I mean, I see what Libby was saying as far as what we'll probably see more of, and Christine's point. I mean,
I'm trying to put myself in the place of the neighbor. Is what I'm
Me
trying to do.
too. Me
And look at
too.
it from that perspective for a second, that, you know, that you're in what you consider a residential neighborhood, and because something changed, now you have something that you really don't like, you know, across from you, next to you, whatever, with a big sign flashing all day long. That's the difficulty I'm having with it. When the word residential just kind of, you know, puts me on edge. That we're allowing things to creep into that, I guess and I'm not sure that's the right word. I'm trying to go back a couple months when we approved something, and I can't think, guys, I'm sorry. Is it a little cater shop or something maybe?
Yeah.
Wasn't
Yeah.
that in the neighborhood of some kind? What if they
you
were
talking about the Hammond House?
put a sign right there? I mean, that, you know, I don't know. That's what I'm having difficulty with.
No, we did a baking group. It was someone that did baking or something,
Okay.
and we did it. I remember that.
Oh, that was for the home occupation
No, that was home
Yeah.
occupation.
Right.
cottage kitchen.
Right, cottage,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking, you're right, yeah, I knew it was something, and like I said, my mind's kind of fried, but yeah, that was what I was thinking of. If they were to come out and want to put a reader board there, I mean, that to me would infringe on the neighborhood in a way, and maybe I'm just, I don't know, maybe I'm talking out of turn, I don't know, it just kind of,
No,
I don't know what the answer is, I'm just trying to throw out
I
examples.
agree. I agree.
I wonder if we're opening up a can of worms there.
Exactly, I mean,
I agree with Lynn, and Christine, because I'm sitting here and everybody goes, well, there's not many houses next to this one. And I'm like, well, what if you're the one that is next to this one? And you bought your home and you never thought there would be a reader board flashing in the street. So my point is, you know, I mean, like right now, if you go at the corner where you have Maybaum, you have Victory on the right, and behind it, you have another church right behind Maybaum. So that would be, you could have two. Then I go back to over where the other one is, and you have Emmanuel down the street. You have that one, you have another one. So we could have three of those on that street. And those people, okay, maybe everybody goes, well, they are on a busy street. Well, you know, they are on a busy street, but that isn't to say they shouldn't have the respect that we don't have a reader board flashing every day. So I'm caught up. I mean, I want every church to have the opportunity to grow, especially in the season we're in, where everybody is, suffering and having family members ill and things like that. I want us to have churches, but I don't want to open the door to all of a sudden. I mean, I know we're not Hilton Head where all the signs have to be a certain stipulation and all that. But if we're basically a hometown, I go along with what Christine's saying. She says that their family was shocked they could even have one. That says something to me, because they definitely know what you can have, right, Christine? I mean, you've had experience other places.
Yeah, and I would say this though. I also, and I think if all of us remove the churches from the conversation, then I think it would be a different conversation. And I think that's how we have to do it, because the text change is not just about them.
Exactly.
And so I think that it may still be the right call to make. But I want to say we're not Hilton Head, but we don't exactly, I don't think, no slight, but don't necessarily want to be Myrtle Beach either, right? So I think it's figuring out.
Exactly. I mean, my family's from Myrtle Beach, and I mean, I wouldn't want what they had at my family's sites here. I wouldn't want that here. And I don't want us to get too restrictive, but I mean, we're trying to have it where you turn in off of the interstate and you go, wow, this is really cute. That's my impression of what we want. So, and I agree with Christine again. If we take the church out of it and we just say, let's take the church out of it, who else can have a reader board? Who can have a reader board, Libby? Who can have one? Can Hammond House have one?
Not currently, because they're zoned residential.
Okay, but so is Victory Baptist.
And they can't have one either because they're zoned residential.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess what she's asking is what are we opening it up to right now? A lot, if we did it. Is that the direction we want to go right now? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah. Libby, did you say earlier that if we amended the wording of the text, then this kind of thing would go to BZA and they could look at them on a case-by-case basis?
You could make that change. That's one of the possibilities.
Sounds like a good way out.
Libby, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Libby?
I can hear you.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Larry.
Okay, I agree with everybody that has said that we need to take the church out of the equation, because I think that if we pass this, or if you set stipulations on it, it doesn't just apply to a church. It applies to everybody across the board. So everybody has the right, if they fall within the criteria of however we word this ordinance, that they could have a reader board. And I just don't think that North Augusta is the kind of town that we want reader boards in our neighborhood districts, our residential districts. I think we just need to leave it like it is. And I don't think we should kick the can down the road. I think that, to be honest with you, I think that's kind of what's happened to us, and I don't think we should do it to BZA.
Amen.
I don't disagree with that.
But anyway, that's my comment.
I couldn't have said it better.
I agree with you.
I like it too, because I mean, I agree that if we take that out, then that kind of limits it. And I'm not sure how much of that we want.
Well, we spent a lot of time talking about it last time and all the conditions, and we made a decision that we thought it was a bad idea. And it sounds like we all feel like it's still a bad idea. Nothing's changed in the interim.
Yeah, I can't get excited about it. Libby, what you reading from us? You getting a kind of idea what we're thinking?
Well, it sounds like there's not a lot of appetite for changing it here, which is fine. That's what this discussion is all about. I mean, at this point, I can report back to city council, let them know that you don't wish to rehear a text amendment at this time. You don't feel there's any significant changes that would allow you to rehear the text amendment.
That's what I would say for me.
I agree. I agree.
Lynn?
I'm not ready for a change yet. No, I mean, I hate it for the church. I really, really do. But I don't know that I'm in the mood to change something now. Because I think once you change it, you create the exception. And once you create the exception, that becomes the rule. And then everybody's going to fall in. So I'm fine with leaving it.
Bob, you? Bob Clark?
Works it better if I push the button. I'm for leaving it alone.
Okay. Tim Key?
I'm for leaving it as is.
Okay. I don't know if Christine dropped off or not, Libby. I know where Larry is, so.
I'm on the phone. I vote to leave it alone as well. To leave it as is, rather.
Okay. And that's not an official vote. That's just guidance that you all are giving me.
Yes.
Well, I want to add too, I think that we could make this change, and I know we're all really trying to do the best we can, and we think we've thought it through, and Libby's looked it up and gone through books, but I don't want us to quickly go, oh, okay, well, we'll go ahead and go with this. And then we have something pop up and we go, I cannot believe that worked for them the way we did this. So, and I do live in a home that is in an unusual site. And, I can look out my bedroom windows at night and I see the gas station lights and the Waffle House light. That, you don't think about it. That is way down the road from me, but I can see it every night from my house. And that's not a great feeling.
Okay.
Yeah, and another thing too is we didn't have any opposing arguments for changing it. And so we didn't have really anything to measure. So if city council had examples or we were moving in a specific directions, that we would have a dissenting voice as to we need this or we need to tweak it. And so without someone being for to boast an argument, then why would we change it?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, council, I agree.
Well, I think that was the attempt with the original text amendment. There was a supportive argument on the part of the applicant. And the planning commission found that they did not want to recommend the change. So this is to come back and give you extra options for what could change. And if, the commission feels that it's just not something you really want to tackle right at the moment, then I guess there's your answer.
Yeah. And we appreciate your efforts, Libby. I know you've had to go back and forth and put all of this time into doing this, and we thank you for that. But I think you pretty much heard formally that we don't really want to, we don't see enough to want to address this right now, unfortunately. So
Okay.
take that back to the council.
And I can report that back to council and see what they want to do from there.
Okay.
And I was gonna say, Libby, too. I think it's about, and we're revisiting the development code now, but it's in the context of what do we want North Augusta to look like. And so, to just do this one-off in the midst of that process, I think also is a little different.
Okay.
Libby, I think you also ought to remind them that we spent a long time with a lot of input revising the sign ordinance, which they approved, and it never came up then. I mean, we did a lot of liberalization in that ordinance, but we didn't think this was something that should be changed, and they agreed at the time.
Right, and I also want to just mention, in the larger sense, to kind of go back to some of the properties that we had before us, specifically with this text change, is there may be some churches and there may be some situations, some businesses on residential lots that it's appropriate for us to look at a rezoning. So there are situations where that is the case, and by rezoning it, they may take away the issue of not being able to have a reader board.
Right.
So just to throw that out there, there are other options. This isn't completely just closing the door on every single church ever.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody was surprised. I mean, I never even thought, I didn't know Victory was in a residential. I mean, to me, there's no aspect of that. There's a church to the next to it. Your entrance is off Marktown Road. There's a small church in front of it. Yes, I guess back behind the woods, you're touching some of that section over there, Hammond Hill, but I just don't see that. To me, is not what I call residential. But where B.A. Holy is, yes, I mean, there's a house every 100 feet from it.
Right, and some of it is just historic, you know. As churches develop, churches are allowed in that residential district. So you could very easily build a church and it still be residential.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had no reason to change it, you know, why would you?
Yeah, maybe rezone it. I don't know.
Well, there is a house right next to that driveway. It's well shielded by the trees.
Oh, there is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
No.
Actually, that was Mackey property, and behind that is the Rapids.
Yeah.
That cul-de-sac of the Rapids is right next to that.
yes.
That's the opposite side.
So that it is kind of tucked in. You're not seeing it, but you know the house right next door. That house was part of the Rapids at one time. That's who sold it to them.
Okay. All right. So are we finished with that one, Libby?
As long as everybody's comfortable with where we ended up, yeah, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. I think we are. So does anybody have any questions or anything about the agenda we'll be starting in the very near future? Or do we want to just adjourn and let everybody take a break before we come back at 7?
Well, I think we have to. No, we can't start before 7.
No,
Right.
I just know if you had any questions about the agenda. The last thing before I adjourn is what I'm asking.
Oh.
No questions.
All right, then I'm gonna say let's adjourn our study session and let everybody have a chance to go get something to drink, and we just stay online, yeah.
Yep, just stay on this one. You can turn off your camera and mute yourself if you can.
Okay, thank you. December the 17th, 2020, regular meeting of the North Augusta Planning Commission to order. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight virtually. We're going to start off with our roll call, and I will say the commissioner and your last name. If you would then, for the record, announce your first and last name. Commissioner Key.
Timothy Key here.
Commissioner Watts. Commissioner Watts. Come back. Commissioner Mackey.
Joanne Mackey here.
Commissioner Crawford.
Christine Crawford here.
Commissioner Clark.
Bob Clark here.
Commissioner Carter.
Lynn Carter, present.
Okay, Britton Williams and Commissioner Watts, I see you're there. Are you there? Maybe. Okay. We'll keep. I believe he's here. We'll get him to confirm in a minute. Approval of minutes. Are there any? And the approval of the November 19th study session regular meetings. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? If not, they will stand approved as distributed. Ms. Hodges, do we have any changes to the agenda tonight, please?
I do not.
Okay. All right, let's jump right in, folks. Item number 5 is application MW 20-008 Walnut Grove Section 13 block length. A request by Metro Home Sites LLC for waivers to the block length requirements of Table 14-2 and the connectivity ratio required in Section 14.17.1 of the North Augusta Development Code. The application affects plus or minus 70.6 acres located at the end of Millstone Lane, TPN 127-00-01-001 zone PD plan development. We're going to focus strictly on the block length waiver tonight. At this time, Mrs. Hodges, would you like to give us any information about this?
I can give you a short overview. This one, as you said, is going to be a block length. We actually have a second case behind it for the connectivity ratio, and is being given to you. You all saw this concept plan a couple months ago.
Yep.
So if you have any particular questions about it, I'll be happy to answer those.
Okay. Any questions from commissioners to Mrs. Hodges?
Ooh.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the applicant or whoever's here for the applicants, if you would state your name and address for the record, and then anything you would like to share with us, we would appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, Philip Green, 1233 Augusta West Parkway, 30909. As Ms. Hodges stated, these are the waivers that relate to this project that we had before you a couple months ago in concept, and we've now moved into design. As we talked about in the concept, we've got a significant drainage feature that drains a pond, an existing pond out of Walnut Grove into this existing pond on our property that precludes the without significant environmental impact. We're requesting the waiver for block length to allow the cul-de-sacs in lieu of making that connection. I guess the two are kind of related. The connectivity in providing these cul-de-sacs, it exceeds the length of cul-de-sac allowed in code. So we're seeking a waiver from that to better protect the environment and to minimize the impact on the land.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Philip. Any questions for Mr. Green from commissioners? Don't let them get off this easy.
Philip, this is Commissioner Watts. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Philip, what exactly is the problem? Is it going across wetlands or what's the environmental impact that's the problem?
Yeah, like I said, the existing pond out of Walnut Grove drains through this area. There's some steep topography that would involve significant grading and drainage issues. We are proposing, well, again, that goes back to connectivity, not the block length. Those are the main reasons why we want to stop the roads on either side with cul-de-sacs in lieu of crossing and avoiding those potential wetland and environmental impacts.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
These are not man-made ponds, are they? Where are they fed by?
The Walnut Grove pond, the existing Walnut Grove pond was a man-made dam that provides detention for existing Walnut Grove and Andrews sections. The pond that it drains into that's on this property is probably an old farm pond. I think it's still man-made, and it has not only the drainage basin that comes in from Walnut Grove, but also the one that comes in from the north of the property.
And Lily, we don't run into any type of, because they're man-made, we don't run into any type of wetland or anything like that they may have an issue with.
It's my understanding that they would generally be treated the same, which is what they're trying to avoid by having these waivers.
Are you guys running into any flood plain issues as far as FEMA would have on their maps that this particular property would be in a floodplain? That type of.
There are no floodplain issues on the property. As Ms. Hodges stated, the drainage features that feed that pond, and again, even though the Walnut Grove pond was man-made, they still will fall under similar criteria that purely natural drainage basins have on them. So, environmentally, that's what we want to avoid.
Anybody else?
I think when Philip presented this before, we pretty much got a clear picture of what they were trying to do. So I guess that's why I'm not commenting that much, because I've already seen what they were doing, and when he presented it earlier, I thought it made a lot of sense.
Okay, we're gonna vote in a minute. All right. Anybody else before we move into our criteria? Okay, we have 5 criteria to determine the waiver request. And on each of these, I will ask each of you, do you believe? And if you are for the waiver request, as you know, you will say yes. If not, you would say no. So we'll go by roll so we can make sure everybody's heard. Do you believe the proposed waiver does not appear to conflict with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan or the purposes underlying the standard? Commissioner Key.
Yes.
Commissioner Watts.
Yes.
Commissioner Mackey.
Yes.
Commissioner Crawford.
Yes.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Commissioner Carter.
Yes.
And Britton Williams, yes. Number 2, I do believe the applicant demonstrates through documentation and or studies based on generally accepted engineering principles that adherences to the standard provided by this chapter would pose a threat to health and safety or would undermine a policy set forth in the comprehensive plan or the purposes underlying the standard. Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Mackey?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawford?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
And Britton Williams, yes. Do you believe, number 3, the applicant consents to an alternative standard and the planning commission finds that such standard is consistent with the comprehensive plan, will protect the public health, safety, and general welfare, and is consistent with the purposes underlying the standard? Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Mackey?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawford?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
And Britton Williams, yes. Number 4, do you believe the economic burden imposed on the applicant to comply with the generally applicable standard outweighs the public purpose for such standard? Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Mackey?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford? Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawford, I didn't hear you say.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Guys, Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
And Britton Williams, yes. And number 5, do you believe compliance with the generally applicable standard is impracticable due to unique topographical or other site conditions? Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Mackey?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawford?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
Okay, and because this is gonna be my Christmas present to y'all, I'm gonna read out the motion. Based on the findings of the 5 discussed criteria and voted on, I move that application MW 20-008 Walnut Grove Section 13 waiver request for block length requirement of table 14.2 of the North Augusta Development Code be granted with the 5 conditions listed in staff report on page 8. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, a second?
Second. Second.
Crawford, okay.
Commissioner Crawford.
And all in favor, well, I'll go out. Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Mackey,
Yes.
Crawford,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Carter, and Britton Williams, yes. So it
Yes.
passes. Okay. Let's go in. Item number 6, application MW 20-010 Walnut Grove Section 13 connectivity ratio. A request by Metro Home Sites LLC for waivers to the block length requirements of table 14-2 and the connectivity ratio required in section 14-17-1 of the North Augusta Development Code. This application affects plus or minus 70.6 acres located at the end of the Millstone Lane, TPN 127-00-01-001 zone PD plan development. I don't think there's anything different on this, Ms. Hodges. We pretty much have covered everything, correct?
I was muted. I did it. As we discussed before, these are related. Obviously, it's the same case and it's going to be the same findings.
All right. Let me ask you, the reason I've been doing it by each individual, with this being on the virtual, do we need to do it that way? I mean, since this is a follow-up on the next one, can we have unanimous as far as by voice, or do you need it best to have each person may say their name and respond?
That's at your discretion.
Okay. Philip, anything you want to add to this?
Just a question, and I guess I misunderstood some of the recommendations that were 5 recommendations. I thought those were related to the overall development, not specific waivers. And I guess the same ones would apply. We may be able to address them. I guess the questions that I had on those were the request to make the path connecting the phases the standard width of the greenway. And our concern there is that the there's already an existing sort of walking path around that pond. In order to make this, I guess, an 8-foot wide asphalt path is going to require some significant grading on that slope. And obviously additional pavement and impervious surface draining into that pond. We don't have a problem with making, I guess, the connection to the existing pathway, multi-use greenway path that is over on the existing Walnut Grove, and providing the connection to the sidewalk that's in the town. Take it down to 5 Notch Road and provide some future connection point there. The intent of the walking path to the pond itself and the gazebos was to provide an amenity to the residents of these 2 sections. I guess really we have it broken up into 3 phases, but rather than a general public pathway through our subdivision. So I guess I would ask for some consideration there.
Henry, where are you seeing that? You've kind of lost me there.
I interpreted what you said in the previous motion, that the 5 recommendations that were on page 8, number 2 is the path connecting the 3 phases to be developed in standard and width of the greenway. And I just kind of wanted to clarify that. Perhaps that's just a portion of that would connect the existing Walnut Grove, the public park that's in Walnut Grove, and provide that connection down to 5 Notch Road, not necessarily for the full part of the path that goes down by the pond that's on the property.
Okay. Ms. Hodges, you want to respond to that?
So that was one of the conditions that I did enumerate on page 8. And it says, and that's on page 8 of MW 20008, the previous plan that the previous staff report that you looked at. It says, I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of noise from somebody. So it says, the path connecting the 3 phases should be developed to the standard and width of the greenway. The connection to West 5 Notch Road should be provided either along the roadways or along an alternate path. Access should be provided to the existing path in Walnut Grove.
And what is the issue with that on Philip, you're saying?
I guess I just wanted to clarify that, yes, we are connecting to the path that's in Walnut Grove in the existing sections. And we are connecting to the cul-de-sac and the townhomes, which provide a sidewalk connection down to 5 Notch Road.
Right.
But we also have a small, what our intent is to have a smaller private path that goes down to the pond. We're on the concept we talked about a couple of months ago. I had some gazebo shown in there.
Right.
Yes, a park area, but we would like that to maintain so a more private status just for the residents here, and not the full greenway width that would require, like I said, significant grading and paving of that path right next to the existing pond.
Okay.
Philip, how close? I'm sorry. I had a question for Philip. So how close are you trying to keep it away from the pond? How far off are you trying to keep it away from the pond?
Yeah, and Mark Gillum, the owner developer, might have something to provide for this.
I can't hear him.
Georgia. And just, we don't want any paved or concrete having to go down close to that pond. We have like a concept plan that we've submitted that has a path going close to the pond. And there's the per sales who own this property for years have kept this property in real good condition. And you can walk around pretty much the whole pond right now. It's really nice. It's very well maintained, and I don't think we should do anything to impact that area right there next to the pond. Now, coming from the walkway there around the detention area and the old section of Walnut Grove, we can connect that up to our cul-de-sac, and then through the cul-de-sac, you can actually walk down that cul-de-sac on the sidewalk and get down to where we have the gazebo area. That'll be a good way to get down there. And then when you get to the gazebo area, at that time you can walk across the dam. You can walk all around the pond, and it's hard surface. It's hard packed sand in that area.
Okay.
So I think from a staff perspective, from the provisions of the comprehensive plan and the bike ped and greenway plan, the purpose behind this would be to connect out to 5 Notch Road, as that is envisioned as a connection, a future connection along the greenway. It would be a way to get people back out towards Walnut, because this does connect back out that way, and there is that path along Walnut as well. But it would be able to interconnect those instead of the interconnectivity between the streets.
Right. So, so my understanding is I'm hearing that you're saying, Philip is saying that a connection to 5 Notch Road is no issue. Neither is access to the existing path in Walnut Grove. It's just that the path connecting the 3 phases themselves should be developed. They are not wanting to be quite as wide as a regular greenway because of what's already there. So is that correct? And is that going to be an issue? Is there an issue there? Because that's what he's questioning, I guess.
Yeah, I guess more specifically, it's the leg of that path that runs down to the pond that we're asking not to be required, that width and an asphalt surface.
So you want something more specifically that just says that the path connecting the phases, not the extra path going towards the pond amenity.
Yeah, I think that and again, I think we're meeting the intent. I think we're both saying the same thing, which kind of we're concerned that with that condition, it may apply to everything on that plan that is labeled walking path, and just kind of want to make sure that was clarified.
Yeah, the walking path that's there around the pond now, we just intend to maintain, and the HOA was going to own all that at some point, and the monies that the HOA takes in will pay to maintain that area and the gazebo area as well.
The other question that we had, I guess, was related to.
So there's 3 parts of number 2, and the piece I'm still trying to, it looks like 2 of the 3 is not an issue. It's just the piece about the standard width of the greenway. So does that need to be amended? Is that something staff would allow? I mean, where do we stand? I'm a little off on this.
Well, that's up to the planning commission. You know, these conditions are set by the planning commission.
Right.
Can I jump in here a second?
Yeah.
I'm visual. So I see the path and I see the potential, the gazebos. So Libby, you have the cursor, correct? Who has the cursor?
Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it. Okay, so walk me through exactly picture wise what they're talking about. What is the length of what is paved in 8 feet opposed to what they're wanting to have governed by the homeowners association?
So it's my understanding from what Philip is saying that the area around, and I've lost there we go. The area around the pond, they
cleared.
Are making, they want to make sure that they don't have to develop this, at least this portion, to greenway standards.
Okay, the portion that you were looped in from one cul-de-sac.
Yeah, there we go.
Right there.
Now, Now, this portion that connects, that's what I'm saying from a staff perspective, this portion that connects, and I keep losing my,
I know you
my
keep
cursor.
losing that.
I don't know what, it just doesn't like me today. But from the portion that connects from the cul-de-sac back to the other portion is what staff is concerned, that we want to make sure that we make that connection all the way out to Five Notch because of its designation in the Greenway plan.
And there's no issue I'm getting from Philip on that, right?
No, that's correct. And that's why I think the intent is to provide that connection from the existing pathway in Walnut Grove down to Five Notch Road, which we can do. We just, and I think Ms. Hodges, made a reference to making an exception to a private portion that would run down by the pond to the gazebos.
And in my view, I mean, these two neighborhoods are going to be maintaining all these areas. And it calls me, we wanted to connect these residents to the existing city-owned detention pond and that walkway around the pond, and for their use, for the residents who are moving here, and building this to a Greenway standard coming out of the pond, connecting it. I mean, that's going to be going across private property to get to the other road there. I don't know how the residents living there kind of like their private property that they have to be maintained to be used by everybody. I don't know that. I don't know. I don't know what the reaction there is going to be. So having maintain and install a walkway to government standards when it's going to be privately maintained is that, that just, it causes me a little stress, I guess, to say,
I guess we'll read it.
okay, that makes any sense.
So my question is, where it's written proposed walking path, that is where you don't want to have it 8 feet? Right there where it's written, but you would have it 8 feet from one cul-de-sac to the other? See on there, it says proposed walking path?
Yes, yeah, the one the path is right down there by the pond. Yes.
Okay, so let me understand again. The dead end walkway that's horizontal to the pond, going to the gazebos. That's the area that you guys are talking about, right? Philip and Mark.
Yes, that's correct.
And then where it attaches into the cul-de-sac and goes back to the other neighborhood, that will be to specifications. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then Libby, when we touch the cul-de-sac, you're trying to get all the way back to the Five Notch Road.
That's correct.
Okay, and so
the
that
Greenway plan.
okay, so that road that they're going to be developing, it's going to be part of the Greenway. Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily. So
when the Greenway deads into that cul-de-sac, if someone wanted to get back to Five Knots, they would have to bike or ride or walk through the neighborhood street. Is that what you're saying?
So I'm assuming at some point they will turn this road over to the city. So it wouldn't. I think we need to kind of separate out whether or not it's legally part of the Greenway.
Okay.
The intention of this is to provide the residents that live in the area a connection to get out the Five Notch Road using some other means than a car. And that in staff's opinion is in line with our adopted Greenway plan and the comprehensive plan.
And so I think what I'm asking you is where they're providing the amenities of the gazebo and their pond on private property, there's no way that gazebo is going to, the 3 little gazebos are going to be used to attach back to Five Knots, correct?
Right.
That most likely not. The city's not gonna come back and pave the rest of a connection there. That would,
So basically so all we're really saying is everybody's on the same page. It's just the section, like Joanne said, the proposed walking path, that section, that into those 3 gazebos, that section, you're saying, Philip and Mark, you don't want that to be 8 feet. Everything else that staff is proposing, the connection to the greenway, the 5 notch, everyone's in agreement with that piece. Is that correct?
I think that's something we can live with. And then going back to Mr. Key's point, where it dead ends into the cul-de-sac there, the townhomes, there will be sidewalk also, not just the road width. There will be a 5-foot sidewalk that will connect all the way out to 5 notch.
Okay. Commissioners, what questions do you have? You have issues with that?
Let me prejudice you guys' thoughts. I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
I don't either, because I don't think that we need to jeopardize the pond by saying make it 8 feet wide and all of that. I think that just needs to be just a regular, some sort of pathway, but it doesn't need to be 8 feet. But you had said it's just gonna be dirt. So is it just gonna be dirt, or is it gonna be some kind of smaller actual sidewalk? Philip, do you know?
What I'd like to do is keep it as it is now, because it's in really good shape, and it's just land, and it's been used, it's been mowed, and it's been taken very good care of. You can walk around it very easily, and I'd just like to keep it undisturbed.
And once you turn it over to the home, once you turn it over to the homeowners association, that'll be their prerogative to keep it. Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
I don't either. Commissioner Carter, you good?
I've got a couple of questions just real quick, just to help me understand. I mean, I actually live in Butler's Mill, which is right adjacent to Walnut Grove. And I guess my caution is that it's going to be very tough to keep other people from traipsing down that pathway to get to your pond. I mean, there's walkers in this neighborhood all the time and everywhere. And so to say that it's a private for residents only is going to be, in my opinion, an issue. I don't have a problem with what you're doing. I'm just saying, unless you patrol it or block it somehow with some access, there's going to be people down there. The second thing is for clarification, where it goes, when the greenway goes into the cul-de-sac, there's not necessarily a quote greenway path down the middle or down the end or side by the houses to get to 5 notch. That's going to be either on the street or a regular 5-foot sidewalk. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, that's now, and I assume that I just want to make sure we're all clear on that won't be an 8-foot path.
No.
Down one side of that one side of that neighborhood. It's going to be down the middle of the street or down the sidewalk. So, but that's, I don't have a problem with what you're trying to do. I just know for a fact that, matter of fact, my wife just got back from a walk right now. She just walked in the door, and she's been about 2 miles around this neighborhood. And so chances are, if they find something, new place to walk, they're going to be there. So
All
that's
right.
all I've got. I'm fine with the project.
Commissioner Clark? Bob, what do you have?
I'm okay.
Okay. Commissioner Watts?
All right.
Commissioner Crawford? All right, so Ms. Hodges, is there anything we need to change? I mean, are we on the same, are we fine without having to redo that condition?
so I can add some clarifying language just to say that that's just meant as, I thought it was fairly clear that it was just a connection between the phases. Anything that branches off of there, I wasn't concerned about.
Perfect. You agree with that, Philip?
I am, and I think make sure again that everybody was on the same page, like Commissioner Carter mentioned, is everybody was clear on what we were talking about.
Okay.
Let me ask you guys. I don't know. I don't know. So, is concrete or asphalt acceptable?
For the greenway, I'm sorry, I missed some of that.
For the pathway connecting the 2 sections into the whole section of Walnut Grove. Sometimes sometimes it's very much easier and manage, concrete a lot better than we can asphalt, especially in small areas.
Oh, I think either would be fine. I think we have both on our current greenway.
Okay. We had another question about the screening planning,
Okay.
and I was wondering are we talking about for the Walker property?
I'm sorry, you keep breaking up. We're getting a fair amount of background noise. If everybody could hold still, that'd be helpful.
I'm sorry. The number 3, the screening planning by the Walker property, are we talking about screening the entire side of that property as it backs up to the townhomes?
Oh, right, for the areas that have been disturbed and don't have any vegetation left.
Okay, because I think on part of that, when I was up there the other day looking around, a lot of the Walker property, I think, is like an open field. So it seemed kind of odd to screen an open field.
Well,
I don't think it was wooded to begin with.
This would be in anticipation of that will be developed at some point.
Okay. Could we do it instead of not knowing what density y'all are thinking about here? Could we do it with fencing? Can we use a 6-foot shadow box fence to screen it?
That would be at the discretion of the planning commission.
Okay.
That's something the commissioners entertain in lieu of the screening along that property is to provide a fence.
Libby, can you give us some person help?
Well, not to sound like a smart aleck, but I wrote the condition as I thought it would be most useful. And honestly, as I thought it would be easiest to install for the developer as well. Fences have a tendency to fall down, and their argument between who is going to be responsible for it if it's on homeowners association property.
Well, what if we said you could do fencing or plantings?
I don't know the answer to that.
What I guess
Mackie, what's your thought?
part of the question, Todd, is as far as the density goes, are we talking about a tree every 40 feet, or are we talking about a tree every 10 feet? What is there a specification in
I'm sorry,
ordinance
you keep kind of fading out. I would expect it to be per the standards of our buffer plantings, but I think there's some wiggle there. And this is, over a 5-year period. But it's up to the planning commission as to whether or not they want to actually change this condition or do something else or try some other something. That's up to the planning commission. The planning commission needs to make that condition or change that condition if that's up to them.
I have something that I wanted to say on that. So I don't have a problem with the fencing, but if you went behind the fencing, and just put in, and we could say a certain number, I don't know what the number would be, a large growing tree sort of planting there. And then when the fence is right down, fine, it's gone. But I just feel like we're over in an area that has a very small backyard, and that would also keep it where the public isn't walking up to it and seeing everything. I mean, if you go to Watley Place on the right-hand side and you come back down and you look over that way, you see the trees and you don't notice if everybody's fence is old. I mean, it's just kind of protected by the trees. So I don't have a problem with both. I like the fence idea, and then we could say, I mean, Libby, we had another one in this study tonight on one of them, of how many trees had to go in a certain amount of footage. So how many linear feet are we talking about? Against that Walker property?
But it looks like it would really only be necessary part of it because there's going to be a natural buffer there alongside of 5 Notch Road. So it's only when you get past the first two buildings, I think, probably what we're talking about there.
100 feet,
How many?
600.
Well, Larry can tell us better
Yeah,
what.
Commissioner Watts, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I agree with Libby on the fence thing. I think that's a temporary fix. And if I were the developer, I would prefer just to do the planning and do it as small as the city would allow or the ordinance would allow, and just let it grow in. And I think from a cost perspective, I think you'd be better off to do the planning than you would be to do the fence. That's my feeling.
So each condo, Mark, is not going to have a fence?
Yeah, I would like to put some fencing behind to have some privacy on each one of the townhomes, yes. But I don't know that I don't know that we would run it all the way to the property line, all the way back.
So you are going to fence behind each unit. So I'm trying to see, where are we needing I'm looking through everything, trying to see where we need I agree, we do need plants there. I do agree, because on the next item that we're going to, I had made a note that you had said you had, had lots of trees and things, and I want to see that they kind of come back or stay. But I feel like each unit needs a fence. Most of the people that buy a patio home or a condo, they don't have much space and they want privacy. They're really close to each other and they want privacy with a fence. So I like the fence on each unit. So Libby, can you show us where you're proposing that they need the trees?
There is a portion back behind, I think it says TH11, all the way down to maybe TH28 or 30, that it's going to be graded all the way to the property line. And those were the areas I was most concerned about, providing some sort of taller vegetative cover that will provide some vegetative screening in the next 5 years or so.
Okay.
If I could, I mean, I'm just looking through the North Augusta's, buffer types, and, the type A is an 8-foot buffer with large trees planted at basically 1 per 60 feet. So, we're talking about 10 trees and an 8-foot buffer. I mean, is that what your, I guess, the intent of the condition is to meet something like that buffer requirement?
That would be my expectation.
So that was 10 trees per how many feet?
But it says 1 per 60. So, we've got approximately 600 feet there. So I'm looking at quick math tells me about 10 trees.
Yeah.
And I think Mark might be okay with that sort of, type A buffer, out of the ordinance.
Good.
If that's the intent, then I think we might be okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah, and type A buffer also includes, I believe, some shrubs as well. And I had only talked about trees,
Okay.
or I guess I said planting for evergreen screening.
Is there a type that just says just trees? Cause then
No.
you don't maintain. I mean, you're gonna have to maintain shrubbery. That's gonna be maintained. And so, Philip, look in there, look and say, if you didn't have to have the shrubbery, can we just say a certain number of trees and maybe add a few more trees and don't worry about shrubbery?
That's up to the planning commission to make or change that condition.
So does Larry have anything to say on this, Larry?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I haven't got the drawing in front of me as far as the purpose for this screening, and we're talking about a fence behind the townhomes. I'm assuming that there's an adequate distance behind the fencing to the townhomes and the property line. What is the approximate distance there?
Say 600 feet?
It's a 600 feet property line, but how far back from the condo units, how wide is that area going over to the property line?
About 20 feet.
Okay, so it's fairly close.
Yeah.
I assume we're gonna have we're gonna have some requirements to put some trees back on the property as well, right, Lily?
Oh, we don't necessarily have that requirement.
We could put the put fences behind the townhomes, and then inside the fence, we could put some trees. We could put some green arbor vidae or some cryptomeria or something that was evergreen, fast growing, and then I would have the ability to have it watered as well. That's one of the things when you start putting trees on property lines is getting irrigation to them. Sometimes it's
That's why I was saying shrubbery, that's gonna be maintenance behind a fence, behind a property that's not developed yet or whatever. So I was thinking if you could just put like an evergreen type tree across that back. But the backyard of those condos is not that big, so you're not gonna be able to put much of a tree back there.
Yeah, but I guess we could put some wax myrtles along the back there. All right,
How about
they're pretty hardy.
how about something like a green giant arborvitae and then put them on about a 25-foot spacing? How would that work?
I think that would look good. We just have to do it at the time of year where they can live.
Well, I mean, now would be the time to do it, but are you not able to put some kind of a drip from maybe some kind of common area back on those trees?
Yeah.
If you could just drip them for maybe 2 years, I don't think you'd lose them.
Yeah. Well,
They're a lot more hardy than a cryptomeria.
That's what it's just a tree back there and then don't worry about shrubbery back there. And then
If you had something like the green giant arborvitae, it comes all the way down to the ground.
that's what I'm talking
even like
about.
a alta magnolia, but the green giant arborvitae would be the cheapest way to go.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the Christmas tree trees, and I don't know the names of all of them, and I know we've just had a virus in them and all that kind of stuff. But if you did that and you don't have to trim it, you don't have to cut it very much, and it goes all the way to the ground, like Larry's saying, then you would see that and you would go, well, that works. And then you don't have to have shrubbery. And then that lack of doing shrubbery, you can go on the front yards and put some kind of little small tree on those and move on.
So are y'all good with that, Philip and Mark?
yeah, I think so. It's just the
Okay,
time.
maybe is that something you can just work in there? Do we need to check? I mean, are we all on the same page? We're fine with that?
Yes.
I'm fine with that. And Larry y'all can figure out how many trees to plant, but I like the fence idea and I like the big tree there that's not huge, but he goes to the ground. I think that's great.
Okay. So
I'm
is that
agree.
language you can put in there, Libby, so we're all on the same?
You guys are gonna have to tell me what condition you want on here.
Okay.
I was gonna say that's not clear because I'm trying to understand how that's even different than what Libby recommended. So I'm not very clear on that.
He wants to make that, he wants to explain that condition, Larry, you or Joanne.
Okay.
Larry.
All right. I'm gonna, I think one thing, but the way things are with the ordinance code, I'm gonna side with Libby and that, I'm sure she's frustrated with trying to piecemeal a situation like that. And I think that we should just go with the type A, order that the city requires and let it go at that.
And I agree.
Okay.
Okay, so somebody's gonna have to amend that condition.
Let me say this, Libby, and I wish I'd have called you earlier this week and talked this through to understand it a little better, but I'm fine with as it's written at this point, after listening to what you've had to say.
I mean, if it's as it's written, and I guess as long as we're on the same page as staff, that we're basically talking about a type A buffer by the screening, I'm not sure that we need to amend a motion. Unless planning commission believes we do.
I don't think we need to amend the motion.
Staff and y'all are in agreement where I think, if you're fine with the type A and what Libby's saying and y'all, that part, I mean, we don't have to amend it unless we have to make changes, I guess.
Well, I'm just gonna say this. I thought what Larry presented to them and the trees to put there, and in 5 or 10 years, they'll grow up and it'll be over and done with. I don't know why all of a sudden we just threw that to the side, because I thought Larry had a really good statement there, Larry.
Well, I think it would be great, Joanne, if it were done as you and I see it being done. But I think it's too convoluted when we start trying to piecemeal a situation like this together. And I think that I don't want to set a precedence where we try to do that. I think that, the city's put a lot of thought into their screens. And so I would say just let it go at that. And then it becomes up to the city's responsibility to make sure it gets put in. Because if I say put in a green giant arborvitae every 25 feet, and then they get put in at 60 feet, then, then there's some confusion. There's no confusion the way it's written in the code. And Libby has the code, and she has somebody to go out there and check the code.
Okay. All right. Does that mean we need to change anything on that condition?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No.
Are we all in agreement? Philip, we're good?
I think so, and I apologize for the confusion of bringing it up. Like I said, those are just two items that we want to kind of clarify and discuss a little bit. I appreciate y'all's patience with us.
No problem. Okay. As long as we're good. Okay. All right.
Okay, so are we amending any of the
No.
conditions that were passed with MW 20-008?
I
No.
don't think we're amending anything.
No.
Okay,
Nope.
so I'll set that one to the side
Thank
and
you.
we can go back to MW 20-010.
Yes. So let's just, at this point, so we're not going, Philip, anything you want to share with us on that? Because when we go through our criteria, there are 3 conditions on this. So are you aware of what those are?
Just take a minute, look at the recommendations with the conditions. Yes, yeah, those are those are pretty standard.
Okay. Okay.
And again, I guess just the same time, it's the same sort of discussions that we had at the concept plan, the connectivity ratio and the cul-de-sacs. So unless you need something further from me,
Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is, we got 5 criteria that we're dealing with here on the connectivity ratio. So what I'm going to do for the sake of time is, because we've already been through this already, I'm going to say, do you believe, and I'm going to read the criteria. And then if the commissioners will just say yes, okay? And then if there's no one saying no, we know it's unanimous. So I'm not calling down the roll call so we can speed this up. Is everybody fine with this? Okay.
Yes.
So we have 5 criteria to determine the waiver request. Do you believe the proposed waiver does not appear to conflict with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan and the purposes underlying the standard? If everyone agrees yes, say yes.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Number 2, do you believe the applicant demonstrates through documentation and or studies based on generally accepted engineering principles that adherence to the standard provided by this chapter would pose a threat to health and safety or would undermine a policy set forth in a comprehensive plan for the purposes underlying the standard? Is there a yes?
Yes.
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 Number 3, the applicant consents to an alternative standard and the planning commission finds that such standard is consistent with the comprehensive plan, will protect the public health, safety, and general welfare, and is consistent with the purposes underlying the standard. Is that a unanimous yes?
Yes.
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 Number 4, do you believe the economic burden imposed on the applicant to comply with the generally applicable standards outweighs the public purpose for such standard? Is that a yes?
Yes.
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 And number 5, do you believe compliance with the generally applicable standard is impracticable due to unique topographical or other site conditions? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so based on the findings of the 5 discussed criteria and voted on, I move that applicant MW 20-010 Walnut Grove, Section 13 waiver request for connectivity ratio required in Section 14-7.1 of the North Augusta Development Code be granted with the 3 conditions listed in staff report on page 8. Is there that is a motion? I made that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. And all in favor, unanimous, yes.
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 I'm sorry, who was the second?
Lynn Carter.
Lynn Carter.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And none opposed, so that passes unanimously. Okay.
I don't think that second was me, but I'll take it if nobody else wants it.
I think it was you. You don't remember. Okay. Number 7. Application PP 20-008 Walnut Grove, Section 13. A request by Metro Home Sites LLC for major subdivision preliminary plat approval for Walnut Grove, Section 13 and townhome. The project proposes 94 single-family homes and 50 townhomes. The application affects plus or minus 70.6 acres located at the end of Millstone Lane, TPN 127-00-01-001 Zone PD Plan Development. I'm going to ask, but it's going to be hard to believe. Is there anything we need to add to this, Ms. Hodge? I think that's a no. All right. Anything, Philip, you need to say on this?
Two questions. One is I just want to make sure, and it's in the staff recommendation. I just want to make sure that the 2 road names that are going to be part of this approval, the Beautiful Pond Park and Lovebird Lane, they were not on the plans as submitted, but those road names have been, I believe, approved through 911, and they will be applied to the plans as we resubmit. The only other question that I had was about the lot widths, and I think Ms. Hodges indicated that I guess in her opinion we had to go to a DA hearing. But I was hoping that since we were in a PD zoning and we've gone through the concept plan with our 53-foot wide lots on the single family side with the 5-foot setbacks, that could be part of the approval that Planning Commission gives us tonight.
Ms. Hodges, would you like to respond to both those comments by Mr. Green?
So definitely the streets are included and those will be fine. Would like to say that I realize that it's painful to go through that street naming process. Welcome to our world. But those are included. The lot widths, given that the PD standards when this was passed, were wider than what are proposed, I believe we do need to go back to the Board of Zoning Appeals because this acts more like a zoning designation and there's not a general development plan. It's not something that the Planning Commission is given specific empowerment to fix.
Okay. Questions from commissioners?
We may have lost Philip.
I'm here.
They seem to be
No, he's
frozen.
in.
Oh, okay.
I can't hear him, but I see him.
Well, I see him. They're just not moving.
Oh yeah, I'm Philip. Your voice, you're frozen.
I am, okay.
No,
Oh,
now
I
now
can
I
hear you now.
So
Now
Lydia, are you saying that we need to table this or what's the way forward?
Where is that BZA piece? I missed that.
Well, that was something that was discovered during the rest of the review. Sometimes when we get plans in and send it forward to the Planning Commission, the first complete review is not quite done. And we tried to do that to help expedite the final approval. But in this case, as part of our review, we discovered something else.
Okay.
I think we'd be willing to accept an approval of that condition, if that's the path that we have to take forward.
Yeah, I would be fine with that.
Okay. Do we need to, in the motion, do we need to state that, or is that, and add that, or is that something already, Libby? Do we need to add that?
Well, it would be an approval with condition that, and it's like almost all the other site plans that you do, is an approval with the condition that it, meets all other standards as approved by staff.
Yeah, it means all other standards. Okay, well, that's in here. Yeah, okay. Okay, we don't need to write anything about the BZA. Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, I would entertain a motion from someone else tonight.
In reference to application PP 20-008 Walnut Grove, section 13, major subdivision preliminary plat approval for Walnut Grove, section 13, and townhomes. I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Okay, we
With
have a motion
conditions.
from Commissioner Key. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Crawford? Okay, any other final discussion among commissioners? If not, is it I'll just do this since we're doing it. Just give me a yes or no. Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Mackey?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawford?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
And Britton Williams, yes. So it passes unanimously. All right. Skipping right along.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission.
Yep. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys, number 8. Application MW 20-009, a request by Insulation by Cohen's for a waiver to the tree requirements of Article 10 Landscaping the North Augusta Development Code. The request affects plus or minus 6.06 acres located at 154 Bergen Road West, TPN 001-19-01-001 Zone TC, thoroughfare commercial. Mrs. Hodges, anything you'd like to share with us on this, please?
I just want to explain that this has not been a plan that you guys have seen before. When it went through previously, it was a minor site plan. It did not need to be a major site plan because of its size. So this is something new for you all. You've probably noticed the sign out across from Bergen Road. If you have any specific questions about it, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions for Mrs. Hodges?
Libby, Mrs. Hodges, this is Commissioner Watts. Why are they asking for relief on the tree ordinance?
So they have stated that they found bedrock basically under where they need to plant these street trees.
Who was that that made
Find that
that?
when you start degrading, or?
Yeah, it was partially through grading and they do state in their requests. I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of background noise. If you're not speaking, do you mind muting yourself? Thank you. But the Blake Sanders, who's a registered landscape architect, and I believe we have Ethan Gaskin on here, but also their engineer have justified their request and made the statement that they have found what they call non-rippable material, which is basically rock.
Okay. Questions for Mrs. Hodges? This is your time to talk.
I'm glad that Larry is here because when I read this, I thought, there were trees growing there when they graded it. So trees will grow there.
If I may.
Well, I know there's a lot of rock in that area, and and if the landscape architect verifies that it's a non-rippable rock, I don't know what to say. It's probably very difficult to get a big root ball in there, even though I think the 2-inch caliber tree is the only thing the city requires.
So Larry, what would be the alternative?
I don't know, Commissioner Keith, what the alternative would be.
Well, aren't they proposing pots with trees in it? I saw that somewhere in here that they were proposing pots. How many pots were they?
Why don't we do this? These are questions for the applicant. So why don't we have them? I have the applicant, if you don't mind. Is it Ethan? If you're the applicant representative, would you state your first and last name and address for the record, please, and maybe share with us what we need to know?
Ethan Gaskins. Address. Do you want the property address or my?
No, your street address. Yours.
1415 Old Highway 52. Monk's Corner, South Carolina, 29461.
Okay, nice to have you with us, Ethan.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all having us on.
Why don't you kind of bring us up to speed on the issues you're running across and what we need to be aware of?
So, I'm from down in Charleston. We're moving into the area. Excited to get into the area. Down in the lowlands down here, never have experienced rock before. When we bought the property, we knew there was rock on there, but wasn't aware of the extent. In our mind, a couple boulders here and there that could be moved around. Because there was a large ravine running through the center of the property, we had to bring the grade down a significant amount, pretty much level with the road. on the front, and then the back of the property slopes off even more. But on the front of the property, prior to where it was before we started grading, we've probably graded down around 12 to 15 feet. And in the course of doing that, we hit shale rock pretty much immediately, about 4 feet down. And that was rippable material. It cost a lot of money to rip it, but they were able to rip it with the Traco and haul it off. As long as they found an edge of it, they could dig it out. And then the deeper that we got, we ended up starting to hit granite, which was not rippable at all. And we ended up having to kind of stop going any lower and cover that whole area up front in front of the paving with about 4 inches of topsoil after kind of leveling out the shale rock. I think there's two parts to this whole scenario. I don't know if staff are we just on the trees out front right now, or can we kind of run into the buffer on the side? Do you want me to cover both right now, or just the trees up front?
So it's our understanding that you just want to use trees that are already existing for the buffer on the side.
Yeah. So when we started,
that doesn't require any kind of waiver. That's allowed under the code.
Okay. Well,
But the trees only.
So when we started construction, other than the flowers that we found on there that we got with DNR and had them removed, we actually pooled our limits of disturbance in as far as we could. Usually it ended up being about 50 feet all the way around. So we actually disturbed less trees than originally planned. But out front, the big trees that were part of the code on there, we ended up putting a sign there, and we thought that originally that they could go in there with a drill and drill down. And luckily we had a hammer hoe on site to do the drainage as well as the water main extension. And it cost $10,000 extra to install the sign because they had to hammer hoe down as far as they could to be able to get a base in there. So that's kind of the situation that we feel like to put big trees. That is what we were going to have to do, is come in there with the hammer hoe. And I believe it was 8 or 9 trees that we're proposing to take out on the front of the property. And then those planters are in between the parking spaces. We have the islands, and I didn't want to take too much away from it. And I thought that the planters were a good compromise so that we still had some trees to go with it.
So how many pots are there, Mr. Gaskins? I'm trying to count.
We have 4 on the front right there.
Uh-huh.
And we have 3 on the side.
Okay. And then you've left the buffer on the sides and didn't cut any more trees on those sides.
Yes, that's all undisturbed.
Okay.
The other thing that I would like to bring up that we didn't necessarily put in the plan, I never mentioned it to the landscape architects, but while we're here, and this is completely at y'all's discretion, I don't want to ask for too much or get greedy, but surrounding the building, all the bushes, we're backed up to a nature preserve, and the only way that you possibly could see any of the bushes are just on the one side, the 100-foot side. Everything else is not visible anywhere unless you walk around to the back side of the building. And the one side is so sloped that you can't even walk over there past 5 to 6 feet around the building. So I'm not sure if that would be something that y'all would consider as well, not having to put as many bushes around the building.
So that would require another request for a waiver, and we would have to go through this process again. That's not something we can do just on the fly.
Okay.
public notice requirements and some other stuff that we have to meet. And I would urge you to take a close look at those, because we just require per foot. So there may be some room to reduce some of that just by being careful with your plantings.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Ethan from commissioners?
I have another question. So in front of the pots and in front of the parking, those are bushes, those little
Yeah.
round circles? Okay.
And I believe there's bushes
I
around
know.
as well. If I remember correctly, there's 4 bushes around every pot in the island on those 4 pots. And then there's bushes pretty much along the entire length of the front of the property.
On the front of the property?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
In front of the paving.
Okay, so, and I know that Libby's saying that, you know, you're showing a lot of plants on those sides and that back, and I don't know what the recommendation is on that, but that probably won't be as bad as it feels right today.
I'm not sure I let the landscape architect do his job on this. I'm not sure. I was astonished at how many bushes he put on there, but but I don't know enough to say anything.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Any other questions for Ethan? Okay, we're gonna move in then for the, we have 5 criteria to determine waiver request, and I am going to do like we did before, ask you, do you believe? And if everybody would give me a unanimous yes, if you do, and then if no, I'll ask. Do you believe the proposed waivers do not appear to conflict with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan or the purposes underlying the standard? Do I have a yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
No opposed? Okay. Number 2, do you believe the applicant demonstrates through documentation and or studies based on generally accepted engineering principles that adherence to the standard provided by this chapter would pose a threat to health and safety or would undermine a policy set forth in the comprehensive plan or the purposes underlying the standard? Is that a yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Number 3, do you believe the applicant consents to alternative standards and the planning commission finds that such standards consistent with the comprehensive plan will protect the public health, safety, and general welfare as consistent with the purposes underlying the standard? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All yeses. Number 4, that economic burden, do you believe the economic burden imposed on the applicant to comply with the generally applicable standards outweighs a public purpose for such standard? Is that a yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And number 5, do you believe compliance with the generally applicable standards is impracticable due to unique topographical or other site conditions? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so we got unanimous yeses on all 5 criteria. Okay. So the motion is based on the findings of the 5 discussed criteria and voted on. I move that applicant MW 20-009 insulation by Cohen for a waiver request to the tree requirement of Article 10 landscaping of North Augusta Development Code be granted with the 4 conditions listed on staff report on page 7. Is there a second?
Second.
That's Commissioner Crawford.
Yes.
Okay, and is that a yes or no? A yes, Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Mr. Watt,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Carter.
Yes.
All right, yes for Britton Williams. So, all right, so that has been approved. So we are now down to number 9, application SPM 20-003, a request by Insulation by Cohen's for approval of a major site plan modification. The request affects plus or minus 6.06 acres located at 154 Bergen Road West, TPN 001-19-01-001, Zone TC, thoroughfare commercial. Anything we need to be aware of this, Mrs. Hodges?
I have nothing else.
Okay. Any questions from commissioners for Ms. Hodges? All right, anything we need to know on your end of Ethan?
No, sir.
Okay, no question, any questions for Ethan Gaskins? Okay, then I would entertain a motion by a commissioner.
In regards to application SPM 30-003, a request by Installation by Cohen for approval of major site plan modification. I make a motion for approval.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Key. Is there a second?
I'll second.
That was Commissioner Crawford. Okay, any discussion from commissioners? Okay, I would ask then vote, Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Mackey,
Yes.
Commissioner Crawford,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yeah.
Mr. Carter
Yes.
and Britton Williams, yes. So it passes unanimously. Commissioner Key, you're getting real good on those first motions. We appreciate that.
Uh-huh.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate, good to have you in business with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good night.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
2021 Plan Commission calendar correction, Ms. Hodges.
Yes, I have a minor correction. I can't even say it correctly. See, this is where we are today. In the very first meeting date, we managed to make that the second Thursday instead of the third Thursday. So we fixed that, and we just need y'all to readopt the change.
So the January 21st is the correct one that's on here, right?
Yes.
All right. So basically, I would ask, is there a motion that we correct the January meeting date from the 2021 Planning Commission calendar? Is there a motion?
We'll give that to Lynn.
I think that was it. That was in the Tim.
Yeah, okay. Is there, I need a second?
Second.
All right. That's
Figure that
Mr.
one
That was Bob.
Oh, yeah. All right, I'm just gonna go all in favor, unanimous, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
None opposed. Okay, passed unanimously. Whew.
Thank you.
Britton, you running that long meeting tonight.
I think we have had more waivers in the last year than a lot of waivers. All right, Ms. Hodges, what do you want to tell us?
I don't have a lot to add, staff wise. You've got the monthly report in your packet. We're gearing up for end of year, closing up our files and filing things away and doing all the stuff we need to do to close out budget for the end of the year. A couple of you have a little bit of training to do, but most of you are good to go on that. And thank you for completing that. Martintown Road study, we've got some final recommendations in. I need to do a full review and then we'll roll that back out to everybody. And next steps on that will be to present it to planning commission and to council and hopefully get an official adoption for that. As you all know, we are in process with the development code. Please share the link for the community survey so we get a good sample throughout the community. Please complete the internal one if you can. We'd really appreciate that. We're just winging along here. We've got a lot to wrap up. We've gotten a large influx of plans over the last month or so, and we're digging out the best we can. So
you see January going to be pretty full?
most of them are final plats, so they won't need to come back to you. So
Okay.
I guess that's lucky for you, lucky for you all, not so lucky for us.
Not for you, but for us, yes.
There may be a couple of site plans, but we'll see what we get through.
All right, just so I don't forget, and I know I speak for all the commissioners, thank you and your staff for the Christmas card, Libby.
You're welcome.
I'm assuming you all got the little gift, right? Okay.
Yes, okay.
Thank you for that.
Maybe not a turkey, but
I have never had turkey since I've been here. Anyway, but that's good. So we thank you for that. We appreciate that Christmas card.
Libby, can I ask one question on the survey? They had about 2 or 3 questions in regard to staffing. Those questions that they generated, was it from their focus group, or were they stock questions that they were asking? How did they generate it?
Partially both. So it was in response. There was some, I think you missed that. You may have missed that part of the study session, but
you blocked me.
Yeah, sorry. There were some comments during the focus groups about staffing levels and being able to turn things around quickly because of staffing levels. So
did y'all get that? Y'all need to answer appropriately. Y'all need to answer the question appropriately.
She needs help. Exactly.
Yeah. And we do have a planning tech approved in the budget for July of next year. So something is coming.
That was it.
What else?
Okay.
For those that haven't completed their training yet, those courses out of Columbia are a lot less, how shall I say, mundane as some of the ones we've seen on the videos and the screens when we've met together. And I'll say that I went through a bunch of them in the last 2 days trying to catch up, and they actually give quizzes and stuff. So it's kind of neat. Even if it's nothing but a refresher for you, it's still good stuff. I've gone through the first 3 again, and yeah, I've learned something from it. I'm sure you have. So just a plug for that. So.
Good. Okay. Anything else?
Well,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna, and I'll do it offline. I was gonna ask Libby about masks because nobody has emailed me back about the certificate from my first hour.
Okay.
So I just, if there was a name of somebody besides just general, because I just sent a regular to them.
Okay. I know some people.
Okay, thank you.
Our former city administrator now runs.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think you'd be happy to hear from me though necessarily. So.
Libby, you've checked me off your bad list, right?
Yeah, you're back on the nice list.
Good.
I'll let Santa know.
Santa's coming now. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
All I was to say is I hope all of you have a very happy and a very safe Christmas.
Very good.
Yes. Thank all of y'all for your efforts this year. All y'all done good. So.
Thank you.
All right. Y'all have a Merry Christmas. And if there's nothing else, then we will stand adjourned. Thank y'all.
Thank
All right.
you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.